right. Well, welcome to BSing with Sean K. I'm your host, Sean Kneese. Today, my guest is Nico Moscoso of Scarlet Moon Online, and he's also Scarlet Moon on YouTube. So, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So, I guess just tell us about yourself, who you are, and the work you do.
Well, I guess you could. I'm one who does not give himself too many titles because I don't like to kind of pigeonhole myself in a sense. I know that sounds really pretentious. Don't worry, I'll redeem it here in a second. There's, I mean, yeah, I'm a tarot reader. I'm an astrologer, and yeah, that's kind of a big flavor of what I do. But I'm also a teacher. I'm also an energy worker. Yes, I do psychic readings. I also do a lot of study in the theory of manifestation through the process of magic. I am pagan. I'm also a practitioner of Shinto, and I am also working on several books at this point in time, ones that are either, I guess you could say, more a discussion of the mechanics of manifestation as magic and what we would consider spiritual practice relates to quantum physics, publishing a tarot deck, as well as, furthering the retreats that Chris, my partner who you had on here, as well last year, or was it last year or this year?
I had him on last year, and then he came on again for the 2 year
That's right.
special. So.
That's right. Yeah, he and I also do our retreats. We just got done doing a retreat in the UK, and he's actually literally going to be out here in a week for our retreat in Seattle, Washington. That's where I'm based.
And so, how'd you get started with doing this kind of work?
Well, as far as the online entity that is Scarlet Moon, I always tell everyone it's a happy accident. Um, it happened on the way to another, I guess you could say, another plan, another agenda, which was to create my own store. I wanted to create my own metaphysical shop, my own spiritual store, and Scarlet Moon was always going to be the name of it. And I do a lot of my own personal crafting. I make essential oils. I can make colognes and candles and all kinds of things. And that was really the direction I was heading in. And YouTube was kind of what I was doing to fund it and, start building again like a business of my own. And then YouTube kind of exploded into this awesome monstrosity almost overnight. And it was very much um, this sort of, I guess you could say, very, very big turnaround. And I kind of like realized, okay, well, there's something to expand through here. I think in my first year, between years 1 and 2, I jumped from zero to over 5,000 people, and halfway through year 2, I actually started basically doing this full time, you know, and it's not just horoscopes and tarot and astrology. It's again, it's kind of, the discussions of the hows in magic, the discussions of the hows in manifestations in quantum physics. I also have a background in literature and psychology, so I do a lot of discussions on neuroscience, neurobiology. I do a lot of discussions that can be also considered somewhat political. So, I mean, I guess you could consider me more of just sort of a crazy advocate of name it, I'm not really sure if I could actually give myself a singular title.
And like, how did your I guess spiritual beliefs, like you said, you're more of a pagan.
Hmm.
Uh, how did those beliefs develop?
Those actually developed naturally. I've actually been I just had my 30th birthday here on Friday, and I've been doing this now for I mean, practicing, reading tarot, meditating, doing energy work, manifestation ceremony, ritual, that kind of stuff, since I was 13. So this is my 17th year, and it was always something that I had access to. I'm very fortunate in a sense where I actually grew up in, I guess you could say in a family and in a lifestyle that was not very restrictive on the spiritual process or language you could go through. My father's atheist, so I mean, at worst, he didn't give a damn or just didn't understand and thought it was crazy. But he always kept his, he was still very supportive. And my biological mother, interestingly enough, whom I did not actually meet till I was 24. Apparently was actually a rather prominent medium here in Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, the Northwest, around this area. So it was almost sort of like not necessarily a family trade because I wasn't formally trained in any capacity, but it was there. But I got started just for my own reasons, it just kind of happened naturally. I've always felt these interesting, gifts and these interesting ideas. My stepmother actually practiced in Santeria. That's not a flavor that goes in, I guess you could say, in my spiritual soup. But again, it's always something about access to the diversity of spiritual languages, not just one. And I know in this culture, sometimes it's you come from either organized religion or something that's devoid of religion. And I kind of got to escape both of those forms of conditioning really early.
So I guess you're able to like appreciate things in different belief systems, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was kind of like, if you're raised being able to eat all kinds of different foods, you're going to have a greater tolerance and a different kind of palate. Does that make sense?
Uh, so yeah, I think I get
Okay.
it. Yeah. And I guess how do you would you say like you've improved or maybe over the years since you first started until now, I guess.
I don't, honestly, it's funny that you say that because to me, the last, I'm gonna say 5 or 6 years has actually been kind of an effort to get back to a place where I was better. Believe it or not, I kind of think I was at a really strong spiritual and emotional potency when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. So as far as progression is concerned, I'm sure I've progressed intellectually. I'm sure I've progressed as far as discipline, but as far as, feeling that power, feeling that presence, it was back then I was actually kind of a little bit more in my A game. I'm kind of at like B plus right now. And that's not to say that, it's not any good. I'm not trying to downplay it, but that's kind of my personal mission here. I think that for myself, one of the things that I really do feel like I've kind of grown into though is that understanding emotional availability and and just understanding that non-dualism as a priority as we talk about the lack of duality and a holism is something that we can actually learn from, I guess you could say, very much the old age, more so than the new age. And I don't mean to say that to knock the new age movement. I'm just saying that holism in and of itself, when you look at these older cultures that were had, I guess you could say they were more connected to the spiritual entity that is Mother Earth, that is the body that we are on, the bigger body. You know, it's easier to manifest. It is. And it's also you feel more connected, you feel more grounded, and there's an opportunity to participate in existence as opposed to try to escape and ascend ourselves out of here. You're kind of working on creating heaven on earth, cultivating that reality you want to have by being connected to earth, as opposed to looking outside of it, looking outside of yourself, or again, the natural body you already inhabit. Does that make sense?
Uh, yeah. So are you saying like you believe more in like seeing the divine and everything here on Earth rather than like I guess an actual being, a being that's a
I'm
god?
a bit of an animist in a sense that I believe that everything is divine and everything that is in existence holds a consciousness. So I don't look outside of my surroundings to find, spirit or God or anything like that. If I want to commune with a tree or a rock, or a cat or another human being or even the energy that is a house, that is something that is still divine to me. And yes, I believe in entities that are, I guess you could say, higher up on the evolutionary spiritual ladder, the ascended masters, the gods, whatever you want to call them. I do believe in them as well, but I believe that we're all inhabiting the same ecosystem. And just because we're in these fleshy physical bodies, living on this experience that some people may or may not call a hologram or a dream, doesn't mean that we are not able to tap into the templates spiritually that make up our reality and the constituents of our reality. So, yes and no.
So, and do you think like we've gotten away from, I guess, that connection? Like,
I think that there are several ways we can get away from that connection, if that makes sense. Um, and I think it all comes back to extremes. And I think that we do have a tendency as a human race, not necessarily, it has nothing to do with what your spirituality is. Whether you are pagan, whether you are Christian, whether you are New Age, whether you are atheist, whether you are Old Age, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think that we can get away from it though, because we feel like we need to unplug in a sense, but what we consider to be unplugged is incorrect because a disconnect from the divinity, the energy that is around you, is basically what's impacting our ability to manifest and create. So we can, how some people say that there's like the sleeper, someone's asleep or someone's awake.
mhm.
I believe in the middle. I believe in the dreamer. And I think that a lot of people who go on these spiritual paths find themselves caught in the dreamer state, you know, where it's, I'm here to experience, but I'm not acquiring skills. I'm not expanding my spiritual skill set. And that comes back to the level of extremes. God is still out there. So I need to meditate or take my ayahuasca or go drop a bunch of LSD or cloister myself away or fast to go find God because God's not here. There, it's out there. Or the divine masculine is what ruins society. So the answer is not balance. It's going to the opposite extreme with the divine feminine. And again, it's these extremes that are perpetuating a dualism that we know is not to be true. And so that's what creates the disconnect from the divine, I think. You know.
Like, what would you say the ways are to, I guess, break out of that with meditation or
Well,
whatever?
I think that honestly, everyone needs to be able to learn how to sense energy. You need to be able to feel the existence of things that are, I guess you could say, not necessarily outside yourself. I'm trying to be as semantically correct as possible, if I can manage. You need to be able to feel the energy of things that are all around you. You need to feel life around you. You need to be able to connect. Again, it's not about just about mental availability. Can you control your thoughts? Your thoughts don't manifest reality. I'm sorry. It's your thoughts that spur your emotions, which generate your energetic vibration that manifests and dictates your reality voluntarily and involuntarily. That's what I believe. And so if you don't connect, if you are shut down, or if you are out in outer space, or if you are down the ground, you're not allowing yourself to expand and really kind of blend with things. And I think that as a people, we've become so cloistered. We defend ourselves emotionally from one another. There's this kind of focus on the me, the my, what serves me, that kind of thing, that we kind of, it's almost like we've just decided to try and make our ego spiritual as opposed to get spiritual. And so I
See,
would say that getting connected with nature, going out and again, humbling yourself by becoming more sensitive to energy, but also being able to read and participate in that energy is so much more important than I think a lot of people understand. If everyone could be an energy worker, and when I'm talking about energy, I mean real energy, not energy as a substitute word for something we can't describe.
and maybe I guess maybe there were more times in the past when people were more connected with the world around them than they are today. Maybe.
Well, I think that's because, there's so much pressure to not connect to the world around you. Whether it's fear or simply agenda clutter, whether it's our schedules or again the ego, spin the wheel. We can't connect to the world around us because we're so busy. And we have these lovely computers and phones that keep us in constant demand. We don't have time to connect to nature because so and so is blowing up our text messages. Or we're working too much. We're working 45, 50 hours a week. Or the ego says that, what's really going to make me feel fulfilled is if I have a Mercedes, not connect to the divine, or the fear of connecting to humanity. A lot of it can also be sort of like almost like a self-hate for humanity. I mean, you go online, everyone's been murdered. There's fear to connect. There's a fear of it, and so that I do think that we've kind of lost it, or we're not getting it back as fast as we could.
And I guess it's kind of hard to break away from when I guess because the society we live in is based on the ego a lot, and like
I think it is, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the ego as it is if it's understood. You know, the existence of Sean or the existence of Nico. You're an ego. I'm an ego. We're characters. The way I look at it, I don't know. If you play video games, you know, World of Warcraft is a perfect example of how I kind of see it. Like, we're the tune, we're the avatar. I'm the level 100 Frost Blood Elf Mage, right? And my higher self is the player of the game, you know. Um, Now, if I don't go on group quests, if I don't connect to people, I don't get into a raid. I don't get to go do my heroics. You can't solo heroics at endgame. That kind of thing. And it's a lot of that can happen, or the auction house. It's like that's a lot of WoW stuff. Let's get back to reality. I think that, but I think that again, we're not communing. You're right. The ego is all about let's all go on these solo missions. Everything's a solo mission. We live alone and we die alone. No, we don't. We absolutely don't. There is a part of me that does think a lot of this movement makes a cash cow out of it, though. It's real easy to fund an adult daycare center when you can cash in on that kind of mentality. That was controversial.
and I guess what are your views about like organized religion? Are there certain belief systems that resonate with you more than others, maybe? Or
Um, to be honest, I'm a person who judges things based on results and efficacy. I don't really care what a person's beliefs are as long as they live by a few considerate tenets. One is live without doing any collateral damage. Making yourself happy, making yourself fulfilled should not come at the cost of other people, whether it's intentionally or through sheer negligence. So I don't care who you are at that point in time. I don't care if you're an atheist. I don't care if you're a pagan, a Christian, a Satanist, or whatever. If you can conduct yourself with that level of dignity, we're cool. You know, um, I don't really have a preference on it. I've never had a situation where it's kind of like, oh God, here we go with the angels, or here we are with the whole alien thing. Like I don't really have that. That's just not. I mean, I guess you could say I'm not really like a spiritual, fanboy of any kind. I like what I like because it works for me, but all I can say is if I were to endorse something that works, because each of us has our own unique resonance, kind of like we have our own unique DNA. So therefore, you're getting to know how your spirit operates in the greater spiritual body. So maybe meditation and mantras isn't for everybody. It's not. Maybe spells aren't for everybody. They're not. Maybe prayers aren't for everybody. That's not. You're still finding out what's in your unique expression. But don't beat your head against the wall for 15 years trying to train yourself to do something that is not working. Don't be somewhere that is not working for you, that is not ascending you. I think that we look for the best way. I can't tell you how many times on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, people are asking me, what is the most optimal way? That's conditioning. Now it's like, well, Nico, can you sell me on a spiritual path that's going to guarantee me this one? You're not making an order at Starbucks here. You're talking about the divine. This isn't a triple grande iced caramel macchiato. How do I get it as fast as possible? This is about finding out what works for you. And the only way to do it is to have conscious, committed discipline and practice. It's not about what's better or what's worse, what's harmful or what's not harmful. Everything can actually be good as long as people understand how to have conscious, committed action towards it. It's just that they don't understand. When we talk about things in these holy books where, let's hate all the gay people and and this woman's unclean, and this man shouldn't be doing this with his right hand. Obviously that's primitive thinking, taking that too literally. It's very primitive. And but the same can be said for when we get to these other when you get militant about anything. You can be a militant atheist, and suddenly everything is conditional on whether or not there's proof or absence of proof. You live in a small universe at that point in time. And in fact, I think the limit of your language is the limit of your universe. I don't have a single religion. I mean, we just got done doing some filming, and I was talking about it with another person. They were asking, well, what are the flavors of your spirituality, Nico? And I'm like, okay, so I've got Celtic paganism, I've got Shinto, I've got Hoodoo, I do have Buddhism, I've got the Hindu in there as well. I've also got a lot of Native American practice. I also study a lot of South American shamanism. And so, and a little bit of Kabbalah as well. I mean, and a lot of those comments don't even me, you know? But I'm understanding because I'm becoming more omnilingual that I don't need to have this paved yellow brick road. And I'm only taking that which works from each one, so the ones that have efficacy. And a lot of the spiritual practices that I practice don't demand spiritual fidelity, which is really cool because they understand that there's more than one path up the mountain. But if you have a relief map of the mountain, you're going to do a lot better than somebody who doesn't.
So I guess it's being able to look at everything and just take what resonates out of. So yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a much, much more efficient way to put it.
And I guess what can you say about your work with astrology and tarot reading, and was it difficult to learn those at first?
I think that tarot came first because tarot to me was a lot more connective to, I guess you could say, my guides, my spiritual company, so to speak. Tarot itself has a lot more, I think, tied to spiritual. Like you're going to be doing something spiritual no matter what with tarot. It's going to, psychic intuitive works are going to get jogged and it's going to turn on the radio signals going. Astrology is a bit tougher to learn, I think, and it's not because there's not enough sources. It's because I think if you study the history of astrology, from about the 1920s until about now, there's been sort of this divide cut in astrology between spirituality and academic astrology. And nowadays, there are so many schools of academic and spiritual astrology with their own set of hardcore rules, it can be really hard to find what's right for you. And astrology is one of the hardest things for me to actually discuss in a crowd of people because a lot of people have all these familiarities, but they're constantly battling and arguing with each other over what's right. Well, I thought the moon meant this in the eighth house, and I thought Venus retrograde did this, and I was like, oh, and so astrology can really be baffling and be pretty daunting because at the end of it, at least for myself, I'm a spiritual astrologer. That's how I work. There is a great deal of academia there, and and over 13 years of experience with astrology itself, 17 years of tarot, 13 with astrology. But I think that we get very restricted to these schools of astrology, and you have to be brave enough to make your own flavor of it, kind of like we talked about with the spiritualities. A lot of my interpretations, my works of the planets and the houses are blends of Japanese astrology, which there are three kinds of Japanese astrology, blends with Vedic astrology, and blends with Western astrology. But we're afraid to blend it. We're afraid to own it. And I think that astrology can be very challenging that way.
And I guess like how would you say like describe I guess the process of the work you do with that?
Well, I am more of I guess you could say, an exacting reader. I'm not, you don't really come to me and just kind of be like, just go. I definitely am more of a strategist. My style is very specific and grounded. I'm the type of person who pulls out names, faces, times, and dates. Well, actually, not names, but faces, times, dates, and ages. And I mean, I can be very, very descriptive and very, very precise. And so I basically kind of help with anything and everything anyone wants to bring to me. There are times when I can also, I also get the privilege to do some mediumship work for people with the tarot, do past life work as well. But coming to me for a tarot or astrology is kind of like going into, I guess you could say, like a strategy discussion or a war room, because we really are kind of planning out, significant events and almost, creating calendars of what's going to be happening next. Again, it's a little bit, it's so specific, my style. It's actually a bit more reminiscent of, I guess you could say, of the less, old reminiscent of like the old kind of fortune telling that you used to see, where it was kind of like, wow, this person was like, and you're going to meet this person in the month of December, da 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 da. We don't do that anymore. Nowadays, it's a bit more kind of, decidedly ambiguous, non prescriptive, more of a counseling kind of session. And I can do that as well. But I think that what makes my work unique is that I'm actually, throwing a lot more of that precision in there and that prescriptiveness in there. And so yeah, it could be anything: relationships, finances, world events, anything along those lines. And of course, then we also have the karmic and spiritual teachings as well that can come, helping people to develop, find out where their spiritual strengths are by looking at their chart. There are 3 planets you can look at a person's chart, where your esoteric strengths are. Are you an energy worker? Are you a psychic or a clairvoyant? Or are you this? You can find that out in astrology as well. So it's a mash of everything. It's not really something you can kind of pigeonhole.
And I guess like what's been your experience working with clients and like have there been time like what have been some times like you felt like you've helped someone or
Um, some of the most interesting ones have to do with health, because I've been able to. I mean, I've actually, done readings where I was like, I really want you to go get your blood sugar checked. I feel like there's something wrong here. Ask your doctor if you can get tested for diabetes, or that happened, or anemia, that's happened as well. I've been able to really kind of help people understand, how to listen to themselves in that sense. I enjoy readings where I can also help people understand their partners a bit more, um, and help. I can almost, I guess you could say, I think part of my job with it, though, on the relationship side of things, is help people extract the ego that comes from relationships, romantic relationships. Um, and I think that it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is, gay, straight, whatever. Um, I think that there's a great deal of ego in relationships, in romantic relationships. I mean, I don't know if you agree. I think the idea of heteronormativity screws up more straight people than it does gay people, because there's this sort of conditioning that tells you what, that programs you to what to expect in a relationship, how to, behave in a relationship. And it's just like a big farcical dance.
are you talking about like the gender roles a bit or
Gender roles, yeah. Gender roles, that is a big part of it, or timelines. People stampeding towards the wedding altar, people, stampeding to the delivery room, sinking all this money into these things, and helping people kind of understand, how to be more comfortable in relationship, how to trust their partners more, or how to understand, the feelings that are going on the inside, whether it's dealing with, again, mental conditioning, helping people to understand or translate the languages, or translate or find love languages, help people find compatibility, understand, how these things work, and also understand how manifestation works. Because we have seasons in our lives. Again, if you get connected to the earth, you get connected to the energies around, whether it's the planets, the solar system, you know, again, Gaia, the trees, the flowers, the water. You understand that you are still subject to the seasons, and you work with that. And the seasons change every year. Even for you, Sean, you're going to have a specific months and weeks and all these things, like, okay, well, you know what? You are in, I guess you could say, a climate, an energetic climate that is much more conducive to love, or more conducive to business, or conducive to health, or your family. And that actually happens. And some people, I think, get really frustrated because they're trying to manifest, the work against the grain, without any understanding of how to work against the grain effectively. But that's more of the magic. So that's kind of how magic really helps.
so like you think I guess there's a way like there's nothing set in stone with like I guess with what's going to happen but there's a certain route it's going to go if you continue a certain way or...
I always believe in free will. I work in the realm of assessing probability, where to put yourself to be in the right place at the right time, as well as what actions to take, what you should do or start doing, what you should not do or stop doing, what you have not considered about the situation. That's kind of where I work in. I do believe in way higher probabilities. I don't believe fate is set in stone. I believe fate is a tide. All right. So there's a strong tide coming. So there's a high likelihood of X, Y, and Z. Now you can fight the tide, get washed with the tide, or get off the beach. Whatever you want to do. And sometimes you want it. What if that tide is like this brilliant new job? Get soaked up by that tide. You know, it's helping people understand, how to use their will effectively, again, in harmony with the energy that is that is the spiritual ecosystem.
And I guess to like if there's certain bad habits they're heading in a wrong direction, or maybe you keep making the same mistakes or whatever. Like it's something you can change. Or
Yes, actually, absolutely. And it's not, and sometimes these things are more complicated than just do I have pessimistic thoughts or optimistic thoughts. Some of these things are kind of like, no, it's the way I live, or it's the actions I take here, it's the choices I make here, or maybe it's what I don't do. More often than it's not, it's not what you're doing, it's what you're not doing. And so that can help bring a lot of instruction in there.
and I guess what's the most recent news with your work, and what do you have planned for the future?
Well, like I said, Chris and I are doing our next retreat here in Seattle in about a week, and we're pretty much full up on participants, so that's pretty dang awesome. I'm also now doing tarot tutorship courses, where for it's a 6 week non-consecutive, so every other week course where I'm actually training people to read tarot, and not only read the tarot as the definitions I give them, but how to read tarot and find their own definitions to read intuitively. And my friend Mike is also teaching on that as well. As far as the plans for the future are concerned with Scarlet Moon, right now, it's really kind of looking like I need to push this in a direction where not only is there greater visibility, but I'm working on kind of getting back to the roots. I just did a little mini, like, two-part video on how to expand your online business through publishing, and I'm kind of I'm at the stage where you go and refresh, and again get back to your roots, and I'm doing that. I've got another channel, Scarlet Moon Magic, where it's a bit more personal. It's more of a vlog, but you also walk inside my spiritual path. And I think that society has kind of come to a place where they want something a bit more mystically substantial than, I guess you could say, the uplifting sort of personal development side of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The last, I think the last 10 to 15 years, um, and it goes in cycles. It goes in, I'm actually not 15 years. It goes in 10-year cycles. So 2005 to 2015, it was definitely all about, sort of the secular, positive thinking, all this kind of stuff. And it's great helping people get into a better way of thinking, better lifestyles, making better emotional choices. Fantastic. The 10 years prior, 95 to 2005, there was a bit more understanding, acceptance of the occult, and we're kind of happening to go in that direction again.
Hmm.
And 2015 through 2025 is going to look like that late 90s again. Okay, astrologically speaking and just community speaking. I've already kind of looked into that as far as what's happening. And so it's really kind of a good time for people like me who like to stay, I guess you could say, again, mystically a bit more woo woo. And I'm really kind of working on bringing that stuff to accessibility for people without, without cramming it down their throats, but also at the same time without homogenizing and watering it down. So that's kind of falling, creating a balance there. So you're going to be seeing a lot more magic and a lot more of the mysticism outside of what is consensusly available right now.
And I guess like how would you say like I guess magic works, and like how does it maybe in what ways does it differ, I guess, from how most people would perceive it that don't know much about it, I guess.
Well, okay. This is a talk that we had at my last retreat. When somebody says raise your vibration, Sean, what are they talking about?
Um, I guess like more like your mindset, like your
So
state of
so it's more of an interchangeable term for like attitude or
yeah.
and okay. In magic, raising your vibration or changing your frequency is about your energy, your auric field, but matching, I guess you could say, like a vibration is simply a spiritual constituent of what is in manifestation. Okay. So to raise your vibration is to cleanse it or to purify it and make it more dynamic. But to match the vibration of something you're trying to manifest or to create the vibration of what you're trying to manifest, you need to know how to build a resonance kind of thing. All right. You need to know how to build a thought form or something that actually matches more specifically what you're going for because we live in an explicit universe. So that's why I'm always like, don't just say abundance because you can have an abundance of scorpions, you know. Um, so for magic, it's basically like I'm literally cooking up an energetic representation of what I want. I'm not just visualizing it. I'm not just thinking about it. I'm not just putting a lot of my chi into it. Whether you're using herbs or crystals or other means, you're basically custom creating, not custom ordering. You're custom creating something, creating an experience or creating a manifestation that's not there. What people use right now when they're not doing magic, it's law of attraction. You're attracting something that already exists in one part of the world or existence, and you're drawing it towards yourself like a magnet. And that's one way to change the course of events in your life. Magic is basically creating or changing the course of events into something that's not there right now. You're basically creating the magic is the co-creation. So if you were to say, let's use herbs, a lot of people are familiar with magic and herbs, right? So you have tools that you say you want to manifest money. Let's say Sean wants to manifest money or success for his business. Now break it down. What is success to you? All right, so let's say it's money, it's acclaim, and it's happiness. You want to be content, right? You don't want to just be like, oh, I'm successful, but also a rundown workaholic. So then we'll take our three herbs. All right, well, this herb represents money. This herb represents, acclaim or popularity, and this herb represents happiness. Now, what these are going to do is they're going to hold that resonance. They're going to hold that energetic resonance, and then it's not going to change. So it's almost like you're turning on like a little machine that's going to stay on for you, like turning on a light, and no matter what you think or do after you turn on that light, you're not going to turn the light off until you go turn the light off. Okay? And that's how magic works. You're creating a fixed energy system that is basically holding on to that in a more precise way than if you're just kind of vibrating the energy of, say, like abundance or contentment or whatever. And it's like manifestation 2.0, if that makes sense.
Okay. And yeah, so I guess it's been useful in your life, like you use it on a daily basis or
Yeah, every day. It's magic. Magic holds up my life. I mean, when you're doing things like crystal grids, I'm not sure if you've heard of crystal grids. Crystal grids, that's just spell work worded differently. I mean, crystal grid, sacred geometry, that comes right out of Kabbalah, which is one of the cornerstones of Western magic. So it's already there, it's already here. Burning sage, you're basically taking one vibration and replacing it with another or cleansing it with another. You are creating something that is much more dense and fixed in its programming, because when you are meditating, you're going, okay, I'm going to send out a meditation. I'm going to meditate on what I want. As soon as you stop the meditation, you stop sending out that energy. Magic, it's like it's just going to go until the energy runs out. So again, I hope I'm explaining that correctly.
so I guess it's not creating something new, it's working with what's already there, I guess.
It's creating something new out of something that's already there. It's transmutation.
But like it has its limitations, I guess. Like it's
I would say the limitations of magic have to do with the spiritual articulateness of the user and their ability to overcompensate or work with the energies of the environment around them. Okay? Because here's the thing, you're not the only one manifesting your reality right now. You know, the nature of the house that you're in, the company that you keep, the astrology, the energetic weather of the earth, whatever's going on in your neighbor's house, that's all affecting how this works. Magic is kind of like, all right, first I'm going to quarantine myself, and then I'm going to create something deliberately in the quarantine, and then send it out to go be, unmolested in the sky or whatever. And yeah, maybe it's to push something away or to create something, a new opportunity out of nothing, or to, yeah, or maybe work by law of attraction and draw something to you that's already there. But it's you're learning to, again, in an animistic sort of way, work with the spiritual energies that are available in matter. Because we already talk so much about matter being energy. This isn't a secret though. This is, from a pagan, or I guess you could say a magical perspective, you know, the secret, as it's been published, that wasn't a secret to a lot of us when it came out. That's like, this isn't a secret. As above, so below. As within, so without. That's like the first rule of magic. That wasn't a secret. But again, as you know, for these things to enter the mainstream, they come in increments, they come in pieces, and we're at the step where there's an evolution happening now, and people are getting back to the magic, getting back to the spiritual side of things, where they're actively participating with spiritual powers and spiritual beings that are not just metaphors for self-help anymore. They are above and beyond the comprehension of the ego, which is pretty damn cool.
And I guess what's been the most challenging part of teaching what you know? I guess.
Saying all that, learning how to say all that was really tough. But luckily I've said it a few times. um, I think the most challenging part of teaching for me, I'm not invested in whether or not somebody goes out and, like, and believes in this. I'm really excited to see things work when people say, like, oh, this worked, this is awesome. I think the challenging part is to get people to do something. I think that the hardest thing, yeah, is getting people to act. We're so interested in quick fixes in our society, or go through the motions. We go through the motions. We don't know what a frequency is. We don't know what enlightenment is. We don't know what discipline is. We're looking for quick fixes. Okay, I mean, like with magic, I would never be like, look, don't practice magic if you think like it's all about smearing this oil on a candle and putting this herb in a dish and all of a sudden you're good to go. The universe is not a microwave, you know and it's just like the universe is not the DMV. So if you're just going to sit there pretending to meditate or thinking really hard about it, about $100 bill, you're doing yourself a disservice. But if you can do more than that, and by doing more, I'm not saying work harder, I'm just saying do a bit more. Like, again, connect to the trees, get back out in nature, release the pretense that human beings and their egos are the most intelligent things on earth. Let yourself connect to another human being emotionally. Try and reach out to whoever resonates with your spiritual feelings. Is it a god, a goddess, an alien, or whatever? Reach out, freak yourself out, and make it real for yourself, because it is. And step into that experience, because it doesn't change my relationship with anyone. I'm not walking around like some crazy person. I'm not shouting this stuff from a street corner. It's just an understanding. It's just an understanding, in a way to live communally. But again, it's I think that my battle isn't even with that half the time. I think that my battle at this point in time is the commercialized aspect of this, where a lot of this kind of stuff is turned into this cash cow, you know. And I'm not blaming anything for being mainstream, but again, it's the watering down, it's the homogenization.
Missing the real message of it, I guess. Or
It's missing the real message. It's become the new church, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, not only can it be, I always joke about how a lot of the new age can be like a financial gospel, but it's, because we think empowerment comes from having money, and then suddenly everything in life is about twin flames and lottery tickets. But there's also the part where you're the one responsible for being connected to God. The church came between man and God. When the church became more important, when it became more important to please your peers or your quote unquote betters than to connect to God or spirit, you lost your way. Unfortunately, that syndrome has happened as well in a lot of mainstream New Age practice. And I think that needs to change, and I'm kind of feeling like a lot of really spiritual people are starting to up their own ante. You're starting to see a lot of people who are people who are prominent, people who are not so prominent in this field, in this area of work, starting to get abundantly more serious, more openly eccentric, more passionate. It's almost like the filter came off, or the PC filter came off, and it's really exciting to see. It's really cool to see people be like, "Holy crap!" You know?
And I guess that was even like with Buddha, like he was born with like a lot of material riches, and then the stories that he abandoned all that to find like enlightenment.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, and after he left the Brahmins, didn't he go spend quite a bit of time with a hooker? I mean, it's, I read that's one of my favorite books. But it really, not to downplay, if you ever bother to get to know me, you're just gonna know my candor's a little her. I'm making the claw motion for those of you who aren't seeing this. Um, I think that there's a certain level of humility and a certain level of need to understand. Let's stop trying to exalt um, and ascend the 3D experience. Let's stop trying to make the ego more spiritual than it is. It's plenty spiritual. It's plenty spiritual. Let's not try and equate these material things, these material experiences, and try and make them more sacred. The sacred pursuit of money sounds awful if you call it like it is. The sacred pursuit of popularity and fame for itself sounds stupid. You know, there's if you're doing your work and you're doing what you love and you're doing it with all your integrity and all your skill, you will get exactly what you need. But we're trying to make the 3D 5D. I don't know if a lot of people, or if you've even thought of, talk about like a lot of the whole like fifth dimensional consciousness and all
I
that.
don't know too much about it.
Okay, well, there's an understanding, just an idea, I was just saying that because it's an interesting idea, where there's different levels of spiritual consciousness. We're in 3D land, three-dimensional, and then there's the fourth dimension, which is kind of like the dreamlike state of like, your energy field, your auric body, your the astral, and then you've got like the fifth dimension, which is like where all the higher enlightened masters and all their consciousness are. You can't take how to you can't take the human experience of wanting to get rich and famous and custom order a soulmate into that experience. You just can't. Now you can please your ego. I'm not saying don't please your ego. I'm not saying that's even wrong. Go shopping, have fun. I play video games. It doesn't it's not a sacred experience. Just don't make it seem like it's more or less than it really is.
Yeah.
you know so
And I guess with throwing the soulmate into that, that's kind of viewing the person as someone you attain, kind of rather than like another person. Yeah.
we are a society that is obsessed with milestones. We're always looking for the next milestone. Everything is the next rite of passage for us. The next graduation, the next degree, the next marriage, the next house purchase, the next car, the next promotion. And that means we're not in the present ever. We're constantly looking towards the next thing. You know what? You're only going to have that next thing, that next experience for maybe like an hour or a day. You're only going to have, like your graduation ceremony isn't going to last the rest of your life. Your wedding day isn't going to last the rest of your life. But if you live your life pursuing milestone after milestone after milestone instead of trying to get the most out of every experience, whatever it is, fully mentally present, you're only going to have 5 or 6 happy moments in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's to manifest then?
And then even if you do get those material things, like you won't even be happy. Like,
Well, it's like everything looks bigger on TV.
yeah,
Everything looks better on TV, and then it came in the mail, and I'm just kind of like, oh, it fits in the palm of my hand. That's gonna happen. You can't, you can't live that way. Again, that's the bloating of the human ego. You know, whether it's the consensus ego. I think it was to quote one of my role models, John Oliver. He was talking about fashion. He's like, fashion, personality you can buy. You know, we're trying to buy life. We're trying to buy an experience. It's not quite how it works.
and I guess like how'd you get started with collaborative consciousness and the work you do with Christopher J. Smith?
That was an interesting turnaround. This was back in very early 2013, and I guess you could say it was a pretty mystical experience. I had the end of 2012 was no doubt the worst 4 months of my life. I had it was just surrounded with death. People were, passing away left and right. I was in a very big depression. I was still doing my work, and working really hard, but I was drawn out. I was feeling lonely. I was in grief. I was in mourning. And then, then my cat got cancer. We had to put her down, and that just, that nearly killed me too. Um, but I would have all these crazy dreams amidst all of it. And there was this one dream where one of the people who passed away actually was taking me through the woods and just left me in this clearing. And then Chris came walking up the other trail. And then I woke up and I had like an automatic playlist on YouTube going while I was asleep, and it was Chris on there. So even if I may have heard his voice, with the YouTube playing, I certainly didn't see him while I was asleep. So I thought that was really interesting. And so I was like, okay, this guy's kind of interesting. All right, looking through his talks and his talks about meditation, I'm like, okay, these are all pretty good, And so after about a month or so, I think closer to February, I reached out and I was saying like, hey, do you want to chat? Do you want to have like a little collabby, kind of. It was really just meant to be like a 1 or 2 time thing, have these discussions. And then we were having a lot of fun. And we thought, hey, let's keep going, let's keep going. And then the idea of retreats came up. And we were both discussing, okay, well, how do we want to make this happen? And then 2014 through now, actually, this is we're just over the 1 year anniversary of doing these retreats, and we've already done 5. Between the U.S. and the U.K. and all over. We've just kind of built it up, and it's actually been a very interesting progression for how that works. But no, we're actually a really good counterbalance to each other, I think, because, Chris is definitely more on that personal development side. It's more of that introspective kind of side. It's more of that, I guess you could say that learning how to kind of ride the waves, how to, learning how to swim in the ocean. And then I'm more like, how do you make the waves? How do you change course? How do you so he's I we kind of compare it. He's, because we talk about like the ego, like the higher self and the ego.
Yeah,
That's the big I and the little I. Well, that's his thing. And then for myself, it's the spiritual universe and the inner universe. So the little body and the big body, if that makes sense.
hmm
So we're helping people reconcile and become more holistic in their work. And I think
like
that,
the observer thing is that he was talking about, I guess.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, the observer. He calls it the observer, I call it the player, but we both kind of we both kind of get, we both kind of come at it from the same perspective there. Um, and we both, like I said, we both help each other out. We're very good companions in that way. When there's a situation that calls for more patience or diplomacy, Chris is definitely better for that job. But if you need somebody to, railroad an obstacle out of the way, or to take on something much more technical, or or be the tactician. That's more my job in the partnership, if that makes sense. So, but we really do we do kind of encompass the yin and yang, I guess you could say, or the. I'm not really one to use terms like sacred masculine, sacred feminine, or whatever, because I don't that doesn't resonate with me. But I guess you could say if we had to, I mean, he would definitely be kind of like that receptive, contemplative, divine feminine, the inner peace, the common and intuitive work, and I would definitely be more like that action-oriented, directive, sacred masculine, very logical, left brain, and we work very well together for it.
And I guess what's been some of your favorite experiences on the retreats?
Well, I think that my favorite experiences are when we get to let's see here. My personal favorite experiences are always when I get to meet people that get to work and then just freak themselves out. Some of our retreats, we do these things, depending on like how much space we have, we do these spirit walks, right? And it's always a nice punctuation at the retreat. And so I showed them a ceremony on how to sort of connect with the spirits of the land, the earth spirits, the fae, the fairy, whatever you want to call them, the kami, and really kind of invite them to kind of make themselves known. And there are times when people are like, this is the part where you say raise your vibrations. You're taking the veil down a little bit. People, they're seeing their auras. They're getting tracers even though they're not doing drugs. They're seeing little orbs flying around with the naked eye. That's a lot of fun to me because it's kind of like, see, this is not just all a great big mental trick exercise. You're connecting to a bigger body. Those are my favorite things, to kind of do the mystical experience and things like that. The just getting out and again connecting to that bigger body. And no, that's probably it. And that's actually what's inspired me to try and incorporate more and more discussions of magic and how to manifest, as a mechanism, as a martial art, as opposed to a theory. I like doing that.
And this is I've seen you post like a lot about like political issues on your Facebook, and I know like some people say like in the spiritual community say like how spirituality should transcend politics and all that. What's your view about like I guess politics and why it's still relevant and like we shouldn't like I guess transcend it and people should still.
Well, I think that because politics often dictate how we resonate with the world around us and how we relate to the world around us, we need to be able to express our voices about how we treat our fellow man, what is allowed to be permitted in the way we treat our fellow man, Mother Earth, the animals, and everything around us. You know, and you're right, on my personal Facebook, not on the Scarlet Moon Facebook page, but on my personal Facebook, I am very outspoken about a lot of political issues, new and old. And to myself, I feel that for me, I'm not one of those people that hides it. The only reason I don't post it on a lot of the Scarlet Moon stuff is because I know a lot of people from a lot of diverse backgrounds that I don't want to make them uncomfortable with how loud and abrasive I can be. But they probably, if they did get to see my personal Facebook page, they would probably not be surprised by the things I'm posting, as if they've bothered to get to know me over watching my videos. They'd be like, okay, Nico is very pro, Black Lives Matter movement. That should be obvious. Nico is also a huge pusher of women's lib and and women's rights. No surprise. Nico is a champion of of gay rights. Yeah, that should not be a surprise either. You know, those kinds of things. It wouldn't be a surprise to people, but I do know a lot of people just don't want to have it rubbed in their face. That's why if you're my friend on Facebook, you got to be okay with it. But I won't post it anywhere else or throw it in my videos, though I have been tempted. Because I think that, again, when we say spirituality should transcend politics, well, how spiritual are you going to get?
Yeah.
Now, if this is just all about the me, my, how do I get comfortable in my own skin? You're right. Stay out of politics. You're not there yet. And maybe you're not meant to go there right now in this life. That's cool. Because a lot of it is very personal for people, and a lot of people are kind of doing it again for the personal development aspect. But some of us have been able to marry the personal development aspect with community outreach and, again, conscientious participation in how, love needs to be existing in the world around us. And, when people don't understand things, like when somebody says Black Lives Matter, they're not saying you, Sean, as a white man, don't matter. Nobody's saying that at all. That'd be like, I mean, you've read my posts,
Yeah.
It'd be like if you said, well, Nico, why is there a gay pride parade? You should throw a straight pride parade.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, well, if you look outside your house or you go to the movies, there's
Yeah.
your straight pride parade. You have a straight pride parade every day. And yeah, if I say Black Lives Matter, I'm not even black. I'm not saying Black Lives Matter more than Latino lives. I'm saying they matter. And not enough people know that, you know. Um, I think that we as people in the spiritual community, though, we need to make sure that we don't check out so much that we accidentally make things worse by not paying attention. Because what you do and don't do does manifest in the world.
So would you like to see like more people in the spiritual community being more involved in like political and social issues, I guess? Or...
However they chose to do it is up to them. Do I think that we should be probably creating a political party? No. I don't think that's the answer. I don't really think that's the answer. Do I think that it's going to take more than posting a meme? I completely agree. I don't think we champion enough causes. Chris and I do causes, and even last year we had our big cause of the month campaign. We did different causes: animal rights, animal shelters, develop, don't, creating fundraisers for education for differently abled children, all kinds of things like that. I don't see a whole lot of spiritual people and loving people doing that in these big groups. And that's, I guess, maybe I get pretty political when I talk about it, me being upset about and concerned about it turning into a cash cow. I don't see anyone donating to Planned Parenthood. Maybe they don't want to do Planned Parenthood, okay, but I don't see anyone donating to women's shelters. I don't see anyone donating to animal preserves or studies on how to cure or maybe even find healthy alternative cures to cancer or AIDS or anything like that. Or if I do, it's a very minute few. We don't have to join the political race to do political good.
So you mean we could just like do more? People can just do more as citizens by just like getting involved in certain causes without actually like running or
And
yeah.
spearhead it. Really get involved. Really get involved. And I mean, because we want to get involved in our own way. We'll bitch and moan about Monsanto on Facebook all night long, you know, but I don't see anyone going out and lobbying for organic farms or signing petitions or doing fundraisers or fundraising to get an attorney to represent the farms that are getting shut down who should be suing the government who's taking it away. We don't know how to fight this fight. Does that make sense? We lack
Yeah,
we lack cohesion.
yeah.
We could really use 7 of 9 from the Borg. She would set things around. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a huge nerd. I don't know if you watched Voyager, but
Oh, no, I didn't.
yeah, that's cool. You're wearing a Zappa shirt. We're in good shape.
Yeah. So, do you have any passions or hobbies besides spirituality?
I like to illustrate. I love to draw. I'm also an avid gardener. I love gardening, cooking. Yeah, cooking, drawing, gardening. Um, I write. Um, Another passion of mine, even though it kind of loosely relates to it, is psychology, studying human psychology, what makes the brain tick, how we can change the way our brains work with epigenetics and and neuroplasticity. I spend a lot of time trying to educate people on how mental illness like depression really works. Like, I think in our society we don't understand that there's a big difference between feeling depressed and having depression. Whenever I see somebody, how to help somebody with depression, well, you need to help them with their self-esteem. That has nothing to do with it. You know, just like it has nothing to do with them feeling sad or needing endorphins. If somebody is suffering, in the throes of major depression or having a depressive episode, they're not going to get up and go for a jog. Leave them alone. You know, just get out. You're just making things worse. You got so helping people understand how the neurotransmitters work, what's going on when your brain sends out these chemicals, helping people understand how to treat their brains better because the brains that we have don't have the technology to deal with the society we live in. For some people, if you, Sean, posted a post about, oh, I don't know, some god awful thing that happened in the world, it's going to still register in the part of the person's brain that's going to be like, oh God, I just found out that there's a wildfire coming over and it's going to wipe out the entire meadow that me and my family are living in. Some people feel it more intensely than others. One person gets turned down for a date and it doesn't hit them like anything. They've got triggers and buttons going other places. Another person can get shot down for a date and it's gonna register in their brain the same places if they got shot in the foot. It's very important to see how these mechanics work and how we can work with them and eventually grow out of and change them. Which again, even if you're not spiritual, you can understand that there are things that you can do on a scientific level. And it's so much more important to help other people understand, a bit more of that sciencey stuff, though. I know sometimes, I know a lot of people that are like, I don't go in for that psychology crap, and I'm kind of always like, oh crap. But you know, I feel like it's important to help people understand so they can, it's like, okay, learn to, become the observer, become the player, pay attention, watch your thoughts, and then also watch the sensations in your body. Do you know how you feel when your adrenaline gets too high? Do you know how your body feels? You get the warning signs. Okay, my cortisol level is shooting through the roof, or or what hormones you do or don't have, and that can influence how you act. A lot of people like have, say, a lot of people get, they have a lot of oxytocin. They're very milky and nurturing and loving, and they want to mother and father everybody. I have very little of this hormone, but or serotonin. Serotonin, I should probably go try buy over the counter. But they, understanding how that your body works, you can again, this is how you pay attention to nutrition. This is how you pay attention to that. Let's not fast ourselves into a stupor without knowing how these things really work. And also teaching people how to read scientific journals. A lot of the information that's out there is hard to read. So we go and read blogs and things that are written by people that have chewed on it and spat it back out, but it's not the same as it was when you ate it in the first place. You know, Helping people understand that while you're trying to get away from television and mainstream media, you don't want to run further into your computer, which is also mainstream media. You know, so that's a passion. I'm
And
a
I guess,
passionate person. Oh, and cats.
and what's your ultimate goal of where you'd like to one day be with your work? I guess.
Ah. Well, I guess there is no like, I'm done moment that I can think of. You know, Ideally, I'd like to have a center or, something that's almost like a temple, but not a temple. Um, there's a Shinto shrine here in Seattle, well, north of Seattle a ways, that I go to. I've been going there off and on for about the last 10 years. And, the priest and his wife live there in a house, and there are guest houses, and there's a shrine, and there's a dojo for Aikido, and there's a shop. and you could sleep a whole bunch of people there, and there's beautiful holy shrine grounds. I would like to have something like that, but not I mean, but not in a religious way. And I know plenty of other people have tried to do it, but I don't want it to be like some suburban nightmare community, and I don't want it to be something culty. I want it to be like my noble Shinto shrine, where I can be like, come have your retreats here, or maybe you want to do a mentorship, or maybe you are just trying to get away from the world, and before you sign a lease on another apartment, you want to take a month off. Come stay here, or yeah, come to the shop, and when you want to get your candles or your herbs and your oils or your services or whatever, and I could still do my stuff online, or God knows what kind of network I'll have by then, or something like that. It's never been the ideal to while it's happening, I'll be honest with you. While it's happening, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, I don't feel like I'm ever gonna try to go out of my way to become the famous spokesperson. I kind of conduct myself as more of an author, um, and a field guide, and hopefully somebody who will have his own center, and Chris and I've been talking about doing something like that together. You know, um, that would be good. That's the goal. And whatever happens outside of that, if it can run itself and I can live comfortably and comfortably host people and people are getting a lot out of it, that's ideal. It's not the Scarlet Onslaught. I don't want it to be like this giant homogenized corporate entity that has just turned into a church. Um, I don't mind it becoming a big movement. I don't mind it becoming a big
But you want it to
form.
be authentic, I guess.
I'd like it to be authentic. I'd like it to be something that works. And if I can turn it into kind of, I mean, if it had to be something big, big and giant and, I'd like it to be kind of a bit more like a university,
Yeah.
almost like I guess you could say kind of like a Hogwarts, but not so much. I don't want to have a Hogwarts, but I mean, Scarlet Moon could be more like a Hogwarts, and I could have my retreat center, which would be more like the Shinto shrine, and, then I could publish my books and do all that kind of stuff. That's where I kind of want it to go.
And I guess any final thoughts or things you'd like to say?
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh yeah,
That's a big
no
thank
problem.
you. That's the big one. I mean, final thoughts. I'm not even sure. I'm terrible at concluding things. Have you ever watched the end of my videos? It's always just like, yeah, it's and it's done. I ran out of steam. No, final thoughts. I guess for everyone listening out there, um, just remember what I said earlier. You have your own unique resonance and your own way of being. You are your own special kind of flavor of soup and spices of energy that make you up unique. Stop trying to look for the optimal, the fastest, the most commercially acceptable, or the most cookie cutter perfect you can find for your spirituality. Take ownership of your right to be here and your birthright to manifest in your own way. Find your own magic and make it real for yourself.
And I guess like if you just want to tell people where they can find you on social media or to keep updated about you said you were have some books you were working on too and everything. So.
Those, yes, yes. The tarot deck's going to be coming first. I hope to have my tarot deck ready for publishing by Christmas. And there will be a companion book to go along with that as well that I'm writing simultaneously, so it's taking some time. Well, you can reach me on YouTube. I've got two channels on YouTube. There's Scarlet Moon, and you can just type in the search bar Scarlet Moon Horoscope, Scarlet Moon Astrology, Scarlet Moon Tarot, Scarlet Moon Magic, whatever you want to do. And it'll show up there. You can find me at Scarlet Moon Magic, all one word. That's my more vlog, my more personal channel. Um, you can find me at Facebook, Scarlet Moon Online on Facebook. And then there's also the Scarlet Moon Patreon if you'd like to become a contributor of it, and you get all kinds of big perks and you get reusable infinite time coupons and things like that for contributors, and you get all kinds of cool intel and things like that as well. So that's basically it. There's a Scarlet Moon Twitter as well, at Scarlet Moon Nico on Twitter. You can follow that.
And all right, so I think that does it for this episode of BSing with Sean K. Thanks again, Nico, for coming on.
And thank you for having me, Sean. It's been a
Yep,
pleasure.
no problem. And yeah, so I should have more episodes coming soon, so stay tuned.